Have you ever been humiliated in front of your entire family? I mean truly, devastatingly humiliated? The kind where everyone laughs, and you can feel your face burning, and you want the floor to just swallow you whole? That was my Thanksgiving. My sister stood in our parents' dining room, wine glass raised like she was making some grand toast, looked directly at me, and said, "Well, at least some of us have real jobs." The whole room erupted in laughter. My parents. My brother. Even people who barely knew me couldn't hide their smirks. But here's the thing about that moment, about being so completely underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most, it gives you time to see things they can't. To notice details. To ask questions. And my sister Elena, in all her arrogance that night, made one tiny mistake. She mentioned something about a project. A detail that didn't quite add up. What I discovered next didn't just change Thanksgiving. It changed everything. And I mean everything. I'm Kelly Gilbert. I'm 27 years old. I live in New York City. And this is the story of how the family disappointment became the only one telling the truth. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed by your own family, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to show you exactly why the people who doubt you the most are often hiding the biggest secrets themselves. And if you don't subscribe, you might miss the other stories I share about standing up for yourself when no one else will. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Let me take you back 6 months before that Thanksgiving. Back to when I still thought my family's judgment was just typical family stuff. Annoying, but harmless. I moved to New York City 5 years ago with a graphic design degree, a portfolio I'd built in my college apartment, and approximately $3,000 to my name. Not exactly a fortune, but it was everything I had. My family, Mom, Barbara, Dad, Randall, my older sister Elena, and my older brother James, they all lived back in Allenton, this small town in upstate New York where everyone knows everyone, and making it means getting a job at the local bank or maybe, if you're really ambitious, becoming a teacher. Elena had done exactly that. She was 32, worked as a senior accountant at Mahon and Associates, a mid-sized firm in the next town over, and she never, ever let me forget that she had what she called stability. James was 29, worked in sales at a car dealership, married to a woman named Linda who worked as a nurse. They had a nice house, a golden retriever named Kane, the whole suburban dream. And then there was me. Kelly. The baby of the family. The one who ran off to the big city to play with computers. That's literally how my dad described my career once. Playing with computers. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I create branding packages, logos, marketing materials, social media content, everything visual that businesses need to look professional and trustworthy. I work with clients all over the country. I've designed for tech startups, restaurants, even a few nonprofits doing incredible work. And I make good money. Like, really good money. Enough to afford a decent apartment in Brooklyn, to save, to travel occasionally, to actually build a life I'm proud of. But to my family? I was unemployed with a laptop. Every phone call home was the same. "So, Kelly, found a real job yet?" That was Elena's favorite. "Honey, you know we support you, but don't you think it's time to consider something more secure?" That was Mom, with her gentle concern that somehow felt worse than Elena's jabs. Dad would just sigh. Like my entire existence was this disappointing exhale. James was the only one who was somewhat neutral, but even he'd make comments like, "Must be nice to work in your pajamas all day." As if being comfortable while I worked somehow made the work less legitimate. The thing is, I tried to explain it to them. Multiple times. I showed them my portfolio. I walked them through projects I was proud of. I explained how freelancing worked, how I found clients, how much I could make on a single branding package. But they didn't want to hear it. They'd already decided who I was in their minds, the flaky younger sister who couldn't hack it in the real world. And honestly, After a while, I stopped trying to convince them. I just lived my life, took their calls once a week, and kept building my career in a city that actually valued what I did. Then came Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go home this year. I had a project due the following Monday, and the thought of sitting through another holiday being the butt of everyone's jokes made me want to just stay in Brooklyn and order Chinese food. But Mom called 3 weeks before and used the voice. You know the one. The "I'm not angry, just disappointed" voice that makes you feel like you've personally betrayed her by even considering not coming home. Kelly, sweetheart, it's Thanksgiving. Family should be together. Elena is coming. James and Linda are coming. Even your Uncle Matt and Aunt Karen are driving up from Pennsylvania. It would mean so much to your father and me. So I went. I took the train up on Wednesday afternoon, my laptop bag slung over my shoulder because I knew I'd need to work at some point over the weekend. The project I was working on was for a client launching a sustainable fashion line, and they needed the full branding package by Monday morning. Logo variations, color palettes, social media templates, business cards, the whole 9 yards. It was a $12,000 project. But I didn't tell my family that. What was the point? I got to my parents' house around 6 p.m. The classic colonial they'd lived in since before I was born, with the big oak tree in the front yard and the porch where we used to drink lemonade in the summer. Mom answered the door, pulling me into one of her suffocating hugs. Oh, Kelly. You're so thin. Are you eating? You know you can't live on those fancy New York salads. I'm fine, Mom. I eat plenty. Well, you're here now, and I'm going to make sure you have a proper meal. Your father just sat down to watch the game. Elena's in the kitchen helping me prep for tomorrow. Go say hi. I dragged my bag inside and found Dad in his recliner, beer in hand, eyes glued to the football game. Hey, Dad. Kelly. He glanced over. Made it, huh? How was the train? Fine. Crowded, but fine. That's the city for you. Too many people crammed into too small a space. He said it like it was a character flaw of mine, choosing to live there. I didn't take the bait. Where should I put my stuff? Your old room. Elena's in the guest room since she got here first. Of course she did. I headed upstairs and dumped my bag on my childhood bed, which still had the same purple comforter from high school. Band posters I'd never bothered to take down still clung to the walls. Paramore. Fall Out Boy. The nostalgic markers of a teenager I barely recognized anymore. I could hear voices floating up from the kitchen. Mom's laugh, and then Elena's voice, sharp and clear. I just don't understand why she insists on this freelance thing. She could get a real job anywhere. She's talented, but she's wasting it. My stomach clenched. Elena, she's happy, Mom said, though her voice lacked conviction. Is she, though? Or is she just too proud to admit this isn't working out? I stood there at the top of the stairs, frozen. Part of me wanted to march down there and confront her. But I'd learned that confronting Elena only made things worse. She'd twist it around, make me look defensive and sensitive, and then everyone would side with her because she was the successful one. So I took a breath, plastered on a smile, and went down to the kitchen. Thanksgiving morning started innocently enough. Mom was up at dawn, prepping the turkey and delegating tasks like a 5-star general. I was on mashed potato duty. Elena was handling the green bean casserole. James and Linda showed up around 10 a.m. with Kane, who immediately started begging for scraps. Uncle Matt and Aunt Karen arrived around noon, followed by a few family friends, the Donovans, who lived 2 houses down and had been coming to our Thanksgiving for as long as I could remember, and the Shawns, old friends of my parents from church. By 2 p.m., the house was packed. The dining room table was extended with extra leaves, chairs borrowed from the neighbors, kids running around in the backyard. It felt normal. Almost nice. Elena and I had barely spoken all morning, which was fine by me. She was busy playing hostess, making sure everyone had drinks, laughing at Uncle Matt's terrible jokes. Then we sat down for dinner. Dad said grace. We started passing dishes. Wine was poured. Conversation flowed, the usual small talk about football, the weather, someone's upcoming vacation. And then Elena decided it was time for updates. So, she said, loud enough to command the table's attention, I have some exciting news to share. Everyone turned to her. I've been promoted at Mahone and Associates. Senior accountant to managing director of client relations. It's a huge step up. More responsibility, more client-facing work, and of course, a significant raise. The table erupted in congratulations. That's wonderful, Elena. So proud of you, sweetheart. You've worked so hard for this. Elena beamed, soaking it all in. Then she turned to me, that same wine glass in her hand, and her smile turned sharp. It's been a lot of work, but you know, I think having a traditional career path really helps. Structure. Accountability. Knowing you're contributing something real to the world. She paused, letting the words hang. Well, at least some of us have real jobs. The room went silent for half a second. Then someone, I think it was Uncle Matt, laughed. And then everyone else joined in. My face burned. I stared down at my plate, fork frozen in my hand. Elena, that's not fair, Mom said, but she was smiling. Like it was a harmless joke. I'm just teasing. Elena said, reaching over to pat my hand in the most condescending way possible. Kelly knows I'm kidding. She's doing her little projects. And that's great. Everyone needs a hobby. A hobby. My career. My livelihood. The thing I'd built from nothing. A hobby. James shifted uncomfortably. Linda suddenly became very interested in her cranberry sauce. I could have said something. I could have defended myself, listed my clients, mentioned the project I was working on that was worth more than she'd probably made in a month. But I didn't. Because I knew how it would look. Defensive. Desperate. Like I was trying to prove something. So I just smiled. Congratulations on the promotion, Elena. That's really great. She raised her glass. Thank you, little sister. And everyone went back to eating. The rest of dinner was a blur. I pushed food around my plate, nodded at the right times, laughed when expected. After dessert, everyone moved to the living room. Football on TV. Kids playing board games on the floor. The adults settled into conversations, and I found myself on the couch next to Aunt Karen, who was asking me polite questions about New York. That's when I overheard it. Elena was standing by the fireplace with my parents and the Donovans, talking about her new position. The biggest challenge, she was saying, is managing the merger. Mahone and Associates is acquiring this smaller firm in Albany, and I'm heading up the integration of their client base. It's intense, lots of late nights reviewing their accounts, restructuring their portfolios. Mrs. Donovan nodded sympathetically. That sounds like a lot of pressure. It is, but it's exciting. We're bringing on about 40 new clients, and I'm personally overseeing the transition for the high-value accounts. There's this one client, actually, Ellington Medical Group, they're moving their entire accounting over to us. 7-figure annual revenue. I just closed that deal last week. My brain snagged on something. Ellington Medical Group. I knew that name. Not because I was from Ellington, though that was part of it. But because 3 months ago, I designed their new branding package. Their website. Their patient portal interface. Their marketing materials. And when I'd worked with them, their CFO, a woman named in Mahone, had mentioned they were unhappy with their current accounting firm and were looking to switch to a smaller, more personalized firm. Not to Mahone and Associates. In fact, she'd specifically mentioned they were leaving Mahone and Associates because of dissatisfaction with their service. I sat there, trying to piece it together. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was a different medical group. But no, Ellington wasn't that big. There was only one major medical group in town. I glanced over at Elena, who was still holding court, basking in everyone's admiration. Something wasn't right. Okay, I need to pause here for a second because this is where everything starts to unravel. And if you're not subscribed yet, you need to do that right now. Because what I'm about to tell you, about what I discovered, about what my sister was really doing, it's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever caught someone in a lie during a family gathering. Because I promise you, the twist coming up is going to blow your mind. And if you leave now, you'll regret it. Don't be that person who misses the most important part of the story. That night, after everyone had gone home or to bed, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my childhood bedroom, laptop open, and did something I probably shouldn't have done. I looked up Elena's LinkedIn. Managing Director of Client Relations at Mahone and Associates. The promotion was listed. Updated 3 weeks ago. I scrolled through her recent activity. Posts about leadership. Shares about the accounting industry. All very professional, very polished. Then I went to the Mahone and Associates website. They had a team page. Elena's photo was there, with her new title and a bio about her expertise. Everything looked legitimate. But I kept thinking about Ellington Medical Group. So I emailed in Mahone, the CFO I'd worked with on their branding project. Hi Ann. Hope you're doing well. I was back home in Ellington for Thanksgiving and heard through the grapevine that you folks are switching accounting firms. Just wanted to touch base and make sure everything's going smoothly with the rebrand. Let me know if you need any additional materials. Best, Kelly. I hit send at 11 p.m., not expecting a response until Monday at the earliest. She emailed back at 7 a.m. the next morning. Hi Kelly. Great to hear from you. Actually, we finalized our switch 2 months ago. We moved to a boutique firm called Sterling & Company. Much better fit for our needs. Very happy with them so far. The rebrand has been fantastic, by the way. We've gotten great feedback from patients about the new look. Thanks for checking in. Ann. I read that email 3 times. They'd switched to Sterling & Company. 2 months ago. Not Mahone and Associates. Not Elena's firm. I sat there, my heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Maybe Elena had misspoken. Maybe she'd mixed up clients. But she'd been so specific. Ellington Medical Group. 7-figure annual revenue. I just closed that deal last week. I opened a new browser tab and searched for information about Mahone and Associates' recent mergers. Nothing. No news about acquiring a firm in Albany. No press releases. No announcements. I checked the New York State Department of State's business entity database. If there was a merger happening, there'd be paperwork. Nothing. And then, because I couldn't help myself, I did something else. I called Joshua. Joshua Weber was a guy I'd gone to high school with. We weren't close, but we'd stayed friendly. He worked as a paralegal at a law firm in the area, and he knew things. Gossip. Legal filings. Who was suing whom? Kelly Gilbert, he said when he answered. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Calling from the big city? Hey, Josh. Sorry to bother you the day after Thanksgiving, but I need a favor. Shoot. What do you know about Mahone and Associates? The accounting firm? There was a pause. The one that's about to implode? My blood went cold. What? You didn't hear this from me, but they're in deep shit. Partner embezzlement scandal. One of the senior guys was skimming client funds. The whole firm's under investigation. State Attorney General's office is all over them. It's been hush-hush, but it's going to break soon. Why do you ask? I couldn't speak for a second. Kelly? My sister works there, I finally said. Oh. Shit. Yeah, she might want to start looking for a new job. That place is going down hard. We talked for a few more minutes. He gave me what details he knew. Most of it was still confidential, but the word in legal circles was that Mahone and Associates was going to be facing criminal charges, civil suits, and almost certain bankruptcy. When I hung up, I just sat there. Elena's firm was collapsing. There was no merger. No promotion. No big client deal. She'd lied. To everyone. I should have waited. I should have thought it through, maybe talked to her privately. But I was so angry. Not just about the lie, but about everything. About being mocked at Thanksgiving. About years of being treated like the family failure. About her standing there, accepting congratulations for something that wasn't even real, while I sat there and took her abuse. I went downstairs. It was 8 a.m. Mom was in the kitchen making coffee. Dad was reading the paper. Elena was at the dining room table, scrolling through her phone. Elena, I said. Can I talk to you? She glanced up. Sure. What's up? Privately. She sighed, like I was inconveniencing her, but got up and followed me to the back porch. The morning was cold. Our breath misted in the air. What's this about? She asked, crossing her arms. Allenton Medical Group. Her face didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. What about them? You said you just closed a deal with them. That they're moving their accounting to Mahone and Associates. Yeah. So? That's not true. Now her expression hardened. Excuse me? I worked with Allenton Medical Group 3 months ago. I know their CFO. They switched to a firm called Sterling and Company 2 months ago. Not Mahone and Associates. Elena stared at me. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then she laughed. You're seriously fact-checking me? Over a client? I'm asking you why you lied. I didn't lie. I misspoke. Jesus, Kelly, I deal with dozens of clients. I mixed up the names. Okay. What about the merger? Mahone and Associates acquiring a firm in Albany? Her jaw tightened. That's confidential. It's also not happening. There's no public record of it. No news. Nothing. Not everything is public, Kelly. Some things are still in negotiation. And the embezzlement scandal? The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? Your firm is under investigation. Partner embezzlement. The State Attorney General's office is involved. It's going to break in the news soon. So I'm asking you, is any of what you said at Thanksgiving true? The promotion? The merger? Any of it? Elena's hands were shaking. She shoved them in her pockets. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. I don't owe you an explanation. You made me look like a joke in front of our entire family. You mocked my career, called it a hobby, told everyone you had a real job while I was playing around. And now I find out you've been lying about yours? Her face twisted. You're such a self-righteous little bitch, you know that? I actually stepped back. Elena had been dismissive, condescending, even cruel before. But she'd never called me that. You sit there in your Brooklyn apartment, she continued, her voice rising, playing artist, pretending you're so much better than us, so much more enlightened because you left Allenton. But you have no idea what it's like to actually have responsibilities. To have people depending on you. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I'm 32 years old, Kelly. I'm supposed to have my life together. I'm supposed to be the successful one. And instead, I'm at a firm that's imploding, I haven't gotten a real raise in 3 years, and I'm barely scraping by on what I make because I have student loans and a car payment and rent and, she broke off, breathing hard. I stared at her. So you lied. I exaggerated. You lied, I repeated. You made up a promotion. Made up a merger. Made up a client deal. To make yourself look good. Tears were forming in her eyes now. Everyone expects me to be perfect. Mom and Dad, they're so proud of me. James has his life together. And you just get to do whatever you want, and no one expects anything from you. Are you kidding me right now? My voice was shaking. No one expects anything from me because no one takes me seriously. You've spent years making sure of that. That's not. Yes, it is. You've mocked me, dismissed me, told everyone I'm wasting my life, and you did it because it made you feel better about yourself. And now you're mad because I called you out? Elena wiped her eyes. What are you going to do? Tell everyone? Humiliate me? I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to say yes. But standing there, looking at my sister, who was crying, who looked smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her, I felt something shift. I'm not going to tell them, I said quietly. She looked up, surprised. But you need to tell them yourself. The truth. Not today, but soon. Before the news breaks and they find out anyway. Kelly. And you need to stop treating me like I'm less than you. Because I'm not. I've built something I'm proud of, and you don't get to diminish that anymore. She nodded slowly, tears still streaming down her face. I turned and walked back inside, leaving her on the porch. I left that afternoon. Told my parents I had to get back for a client meeting, which wasn't entirely untrue. I needed to finish that branding project. On the train ride back to New York, I felt. I don't know. Not triumphant. Not satisfied. Just tired. I'd exposed Elena's lie, but it didn't make me feel better. If anything, I felt worse. Because I saw her clearly for the first time, not as the perfect older sister who had it all together, but as someone struggling, someone scared, someone who'd built her identity on being the successful one and was terrified of losing it. Over the next week, things unfolded exactly as Joshua had predicted. The news broke about Mahone and Associates. Partner embezzlement. Client fund misappropriation. State investigation. The firm was shut down pending legal proceedings. Elena called me on a Tuesday night. It's all over, she said, her voice hollow. I'm out of a job. They let everyone go except the partners who are dealing with the legal stuff. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. I told Mom and Dad. About everything. The lie. The firm. All of it. How'd they take it? About as well as you'd expect. Mom cried. Dad just looked disappointed. Which is somehow worse. We sat in silence on the phone for a moment. Kelly? Yeah? I'm sorry. For Thanksgiving. For all of it. You were right. I spent so long putting you down because it made me feel better about my own failures. That wasn't fair. I swallowed hard. Thank you. Are we okay? I thought about it. We're getting there. 3 months later, I got a call from Mom. Kelly, honey, your father and I want to talk to you about something. My stomach dropped. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. We owe you an apology. For what? For not taking you seriously. For letting Elena, and honestly, for letting ourselves, dismiss what you've built. Your father and I have been talking, and we realize we've been unfair to you for a long time. I didn't know what to say. We're proud of you, Kelly. We should have said that years ago. I cried on the phone with my mother for 20 minutes. Elena, meanwhile, did something I didn't expect. She enrolled in a career counseling program and started applying for jobs outside of accounting. Turns out, she'd never actually liked accounting. She'd chosen it because it seemed stable, respectable, the kind of career our parents would be proud of. What she actually wanted to do was event planning. 6 months after Thanksgiving, she got a job at a boutique event company in Albany. The pay was less than she'd made at Mahone and Associates, but she was happier. We started having phone calls. Real ones, where we actually talked instead of her lecturing me or me being defensive. She came to visit me in New York once. I showed her around Brooklyn, took her to my favorite coffee shop, introduced her to some of my clients at a networking event. You've really built something here, she said, looking around at the event space where I was showing my portfolio to potential clients. I'm sorry I never saw it before. I'm sorry you felt like you had to compete with me, I replied. She smiled. We're kind of a mess, huh? Yeah. But we're working on it. Here's what I learned from all of this. Family dynamics are complicated. People hurt each other, sometimes without even realizing it. And sometimes the people who seem to have it all together are the ones struggling the most. I spent years thinking Elena looked down on me because she genuinely believed I was failing. But the truth was, she was projecting her own insecurities. She was terrified of failure, terrified of not living up to expectations, and putting me down was her way of convincing herself, and everyone else, that she had it all figured out. She didn't. None of us do. But we can choose how we treat each other. We can choose to build each other up instead of tearing each other down. We can choose honesty over performance. We can choose growth over ego. That Thanksgiving changed my family. Not overnight, and not perfectly. We still have our moments. Dad still makes comments about real jobs sometimes, though he catches himself now. Mom still worries about me living in the city. James still doesn't fully get what I do. But it's better. We're better. And I'm no longer the family disappointment. I'm just Kelly. And that's enough. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to support you? Have you ever been the one sitting at the table, taking the jokes, absorbing the criticism, wondering if maybe they're right? You're not alone. And you don't deserve to be treated that way. So here's what I need you to do: subscribe to this channel. Not just because I want the numbers, though I won't lie, that helps, but because if you don't, you might miss the next story. The one about the woman who stood up to her toxic boss. Or the man who discovered his best friend was sabotaging his business. Or the teenager who exposed her school's administration for covering up bullying. These stories matter. Your story matters. And if you leave now, if you scroll past without subscribing, you're telling yourself that your voice, your experience, your truth doesn't matter enough to take up space. But it does. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me about your upcoming family gathering, Thanksgiving, Christmas, a wedding. Tell me what you're dreading, or what you're looking forward to, or just say hi. Because community is built by people who show up. And I'm showing up for you. Now it's your turn. Subscribe. Comment. And remember, being underestimated is just the setup for your comeback story. This is Kelly Gilbert, reminding you that the people who doubt you the most are often the ones who need you to fail so they can feel successful. Don't give them that satisfaction. Keep building. Keep creating. Keep proving them wrong, not for their sake, but for yours. I'll see you in the next one.